Well, Carrie, we've hit the halfway point of the season already, and we knew that it would go by fast with the shortened season, but it has gone by faster than what we probably really had anticipated at the same time.
It's funny how you correlate it with obviously going fast being a shortened 6-game season. However, the amount of games that you've gotten in because of the shortened season and the schedules, like, it blows any other long or normal season out of the water.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, you take a look at just through the first 3 weeks, to collectively we've been able to cover 14 games, and me personally, I've been to 9 games. So the schedule has been very favorable to that, and of course we got to thank the ADs for the allowance of getting us the field access as well, and then the coaches for staying on top of the stats, which is really helping us out. Obviously, this week alone, we've seen a lot of people start to climb the lists on the all-time record lists, both in passing, rushing, and receiving. So that's really cool to see. Obviously, we have another guy that's getting ready to potentially break the all-time touchdown list offensively as well. So it's been one of those seasons that you hope some of these records do get broken just for the fact that they don't have that opportunity to play a full season.
Well, and you're not playing for a state title this year. So
right.
Let's break some records instead.
Let's break some records. But we got another solid round of games this week. We break into week 4, which is usually rivalry week, and we have quite a few rivalries this week as well.
I wish I had $1 for every time you said that wrong.
But obviously, one of the headliners of the week is our game of the week, which pits EPC versus Milledgeville. We have Stockton and Galena in a rivalry game as well, which takes the 2 winningest programs in NUIC history.
And our household's favorite rivalry. See, now then I screw it up. Our rivalry for the Galena Winslow Panthers and the Dakota Indians.
So, and then there's some other big games too going on. Orangeville and Du-Pec's going to be a big game Saturday in Orangeville as well. East Dubuque and Aquin definitely could be a dogfight of a game too. And, Forreston Rockford Christian looks at it could be a potential good matchup, and even the Amboy West Carroll game. So overall, this is a pretty solid slate of games this week, and I'm ready to kick this thing off. How about you?
Let's do it. Our first matchup, our crossover matchup of the week, takes us to Aquin, 7 o'clock Friday night, and it's going to feature the East Dubuque Warriors taking on the Aquin Bulldogs.
Yeah, East Dubuque comes in with a 1-2 record after a tough loss to Galena Winslow 32-12, while Aquin comes in with the 3-0 record as expected. But they had a dogfight of a game there themselves in a 40-14 final, but that game was much closer than the end result was. And you got a pretty good matchup here. Obviously, last season, Aquin won this game 39-7 in week 4, but we've already seen East Dubuque show some promise as well.
Exactly, and starting with East Dubuque, they've shown a lot of grit so far this season. They keep battling back despite, what's been going on. How can they limit the big plays on defense and then capitalize on offense?
Well, I think on defense, you definitely need to focus on the defensive line first. Obviously, Aquin, as we all know, is a spread team, but they're a spread team that wants to run first, pass second. And when you take a look at the top 2 rushing leaders in the conference so far for the season, it's Ty Steekel and William Gustafson of both of Aquin, and it's a quarterback-running back combination. And to be honest, one of the hottest players in the conference right now is Ty Steekel. You take a look at what he's done over the past 2 weeks alone. He's ran for 451 yards and 7 touchdowns. So he's got a hot streak going, and he's rattled off some big games here in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, we both know, and everybody else knows, what Will Gustafson has meant to the Aquin offense and where he has put himself record-wise as well. He's sitting at what was it, 78 touchdowns, career offensive touchdowns. Looking to pass up John Lauer from EPC back in the early 2000s, but he needs 10 more touchdowns to do that. Will it happen? Very high possibility that it can, but offensively, you're looking at him climbing the ranks in the rushing list. He's climbing the ranks in the passing list as well. So you got to, as for East Dubuque, you have a big concern there on the defensive line. Obviously, you need to put guys on Brennan Carlson and Andrew Bowman and keep them contained as well, because they are going to try to air it out to those two specifically. And Aquin does a good job of it.
Aquin, they've started slower. They've had the battles that they've been fighting in the first half. How can they take the success that they find in the second and translate it back to the first?
Well, you know, it's one of those things, like you said, Aquin has had some battles in the first half of every game they've been in, and some of it just comes from sloppy play. Some of it is, you know, they're getting other teams' best efforts moving right out of the gates. And you're going to have that when you're one of the top teams in the state, because what better thing to do than to beat who's ranked number 1, number 2, number 3. And but they got to come out ready to go. They got to limit those first half mistakes, because at some point, if you get too many first half mistakes, you're not going to be able to overcome it in the second half. East Dubuque's a streaky team. They're not a big team. The size advantage is going to go to Aquin, but East Dubuque's a streaky team as far as what they have athletically, and they can hit you on some big plays to Ben Montag, Dennis, Dawson Fyan, Will Kiefer, and Sam Huntington. And Sam Bowman is back there at the quarterback position. He can throw the ball. He hasn't been real receptive to running the ball, but you never know what's going to happen there.
Who are you taking?
I'm going to stick with what my original pick was, Aquin, but I think it's going to be a much better game than it was last season as well.
Couldn't say it better myself. Our first North matchup takes us to Orangeville, and we will see the Du-Pec Rivermen taking on the Orangeville Broncos 1 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously a big matchup here. Du-Pec coming in with the 2-0 record. Orangeville coming in at 1-2, which we, at the beginning of the season, we would have expected them to be 2-1 at this point as well. Obviously, both teams are getting recognition across the state as far as state rankings are concerned, despite where Orangeville's record's at. And if you take a look, you know, last week Du-Pec beat Dakota 44-0, and Orangeville lost another nail biter, this time to Galena 14-8. Obviously, last year Du-Pec won this game 10-0 in Week 4, and here we are in another Week 4 matchup.
I know we talked about this last week, but the Du-Pec offense is hot under Hunter Hoffman. How can their O-line handle the pressure from that Orangeville will bring?
You know, that's going to be one of the keys for Du-Pec to have success, because if they cannot control the pass rush that Orangeville is going to bring, you're going to eliminate the amount of time that Hunter Hoffman's going to have to be able to throw the ball. And if I'm Orangeville, that's exactly what I'm looking to do. I want to get that pressure on that line and make Hunter have quicker decisions that may not be the right decisions and force turnovers. Likewise, if you can penetrate that offensive line also, you're going to really handicap the run game that Du-Pec has, which, you know, they've been able to run the ball, but they're not having consistency with it, and it comes down to that offensive line play, which we've noted before. That's one of their biggest sticking points right now early in the season, is they got to get more consistent up front. And that's where, if I'm Orangeville, I want to attack that.
Orangeville has been they've been in a dogfight every week, and I know it's not going to stop here. How do they keep that powerful run game going efficiently to keep the Du-Pec offense off the field?
Well, for Orangeville, again, to get the run game going, likewise, it's going to start off up front. They have to win that line of scrimmage. They have to come ready to go. They got to get Janicki going. Me personally, I would like to see them get Jordan more involved with the offense where they can, kind of mix it up. I mean, granted, Orangeville has been, like you said, in dogfights. So they've, when you get in a dogfight, it's tough. It's power between the trenches, and where are you going to go to? You're going to go to your strongest back the most, which has been Cade Janicki. But you have a speedster in Chase Jordan that you got to get room, and as soon as he gets that sliver of green grass, he can turn it into 6 real quick. And if I'm Orangeville, I want to know how I can do that. And that it's just that. It's executing, coming off the ball, sustaining your blocks, and giving your guys some room to run.
Where are you taking?
That's a tough one. Orangeville's at home. Du-Pec's on the road.
Well, to be fair, Dubuque hasn't played a home game yet. I mean...
True. I think they're liking that turf field. I don't know. I don't know who to take. This is my toss-up game.
Do you feel like this is one of those games that you kind of wish both teams could get a tie in? I know that sounds so silly, but like they are both fantastic teams.
Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup. Right now, I'm edging towards Du-Pec. Originally, I had Orangeville. I'm edging towards Du-Pec right now. I want to see what Orangeville can do to stifle the Du-Pec offense. As you said, they're hot, but I like Du-Pec. You?
I've gone back and forth too, and it's funny because I sat there and I was pretty sure it was Du-Pec, but then I would go, oh, okay, well maybe I like the Broncos. And so it's not even funny. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I think I have to side with you, and I do have to take the Rivermen in this matchup. Our next North matchup takes us over to Harlem High School Friday night at 7 o'clock for, like I said, one of our favorite seasonal games. It'll feature the Lena Panthers taking on the Dakota Indians.
Yeah, Kieran. Lena Winslow comes in with the 2-1 record. Dakota coming in at 0-2. Last week, Lena Winslow beat East Dubuque 32-12, while Dakota lost to Du-Pec 44-0. And last year, Lena Winslow won this game 46-14, also happening in week 4. Lena Winslow obviously up 46-0 at halftime in that game, putting on a running clock to start the second half. It's one of those things where this was a once proud rivalry. I almost did it. And, it's one of those things, too, where when does it stop becoming a rivalry? I think the town people like to have that rivalry, but there's really been no competitiveness in this matchup since the 2015 season.
Well, and I know you being a Dakota alum yourself, I know you had different rivals than I did as an 07 grad. And, Dakota was always circled on our calendar, and I don't think Lee Win was always circled on yours. But regardless, this is a once, big-time matchup. Lee Win has not lost a 1A game, or to a 1A school since the 2018 semifinals, but they lost to Forreston. How do they keep control over Dakota?
Well, really, it's relatively easy. You come out and you execute. Obviously, the size advantage is going to be in favor of Lena Winslow. So offensively, you come out, you control that line of scrimmage off the bat, you get your run game going, you get in the end zone, you get your starters out of the game, and you watch the rest of it. Defensively, again, you want to get your defensive line to put Dakota in some bad situations. And unfortunately, in this game, you can see that happening quite a bit. Seen some film. I've seen Lena Winslow play a couple times already. I've seen some film on Dakota already. And in this game, you just hope that, it can remain somewhat close, but really it's Lena Winslow's going to attack. They need to attack quickly, disrupt that Dakota offense.
Dakota's had some issues up front. How can they find the right personnel to get them back on track?
It's going to be tough. Really, at some point, you got to dig down deep inside of you, and you got to find out what you're playing for. And right now, you got to play for pride. You got quite a bit of seniors that are leading this Dakota Indian team, and if you're a senior, this is your last go-around. At some point, when you're putting on those pads to represent your school, and you put that maroon and white jersey on, you got to dig deep inside your gut and have that wake-up call to yourself and say, we're not going to go out without putting up a good fight. And that's what Dakota's got to do right now. They got to put that fight together. Obviously, they're trying to develop some things, but your seniors really need to step up in this game. And what better way to step up than against the defending champs?
Who are you taking?
Lena Winslow.
Sorry, guys. It's always music to my ears. I'm also going to take the Panthers in this matchup. Our last North matchup takes us up to Hazel Green, Wisconsin, to the Southwestern High School, 10 a.m. on Saturday, and it's going to feature the Stockton Blackhawks taking on the Galena Pirates.
Yeah, Stockton comes in at 1-2, kind of a little backwards from where we expect them to be, while Galena comes in at 3-0. Definitely ahead of the curve of where we thought they would be, but not outside of the reality where we thought they could be. Obviously, last week Stockton won 44-20 over Rockford Christian, and Galena beat Orangeville in a tight game, 14-8. Last year, Stockton won this game 26-0 in Week 4, and here we are with another rivalry game, and it's a great one, Stockton and Galena.
I love how you have to question if you're going to get tongue-tied or not. Welcome to my life. Anyway, the Stockton Blackhawks have a powerful backfield. Yet, they're up front, it's a little weak. How do they become more formidable to allow holes in the backfield of Triple H to get running around?
Well, I like that Triple H, by the way, Hass, Herman, and Hilly. But you have a great backfield in those three, and you got to get that offensive line to get moving. And obviously, I believe we're at that time frame where Stockton now has everybody back, which is a good thing for the Blackhawks. Last week, they were able to utilize Hass and Herman effectively, with both of them getting over 100 yards rushing, and then Hilly pitched in with about 60 or 70 yards as well. They need more of that. The more that they can keep the three different backs getting carries in the offense, they're back to running a wishbone type offense. But the more you can get that cross direction, multi-direction type run game going, feeding different ball carriers, it makes it very hard for a defense to hone in on who to stop. And with a backfield like that, you got to be able to get those blocks up front and, create enough room to get these guys moving. I mean, you may get the big one, but if you can grind out 3-4 yards every carry, you're going to make a lot of things happen.
Galena, they've been making things happen. It's great as someone who's, grown up in the area and you've seen Galena on top. It's really cool to see them sitting there at 3-0. But obviously, impressive start. How do they get control of the line and control the tempo of this game?
Well, that's been one of the things that Galena's been very good at so far in the games that they've played, is they've been able to do some things up front where their line play has been able to give Ethan Hafel enough time to pass, and at different times it's been able to give Dulio Masazuma and Peyton Power the ability to run the ball, whether it be in a double wing offense, the I formation, and that's one of the great things that Galena has going for them, is because they have the ability to change it up so quickly. If they can keep that consistent line play going, they're going to have some good opportunities to make some plays and maybe reverse that score from last season's game. Do I think it's going to be 26-0 the opposite way? No, I don't. I think this is going to be a hard-fought game. Obviously, Stockton's record doesn't show it, but Stockton is still a very formidable team, and they're going to fight you. And it is, like you said, it's great to see Galena back at the top, undefeated. It's been a long time coming. They're a program, and regardless of what's happened over the past 4 seasons, Galena is still the premier program in the NUIC over the length of time. So can they formulate it into what's coming? We're going to find out.
Who are you taking?
I like Galena.
I do too. Our first South matchup is going to be played 7 p.m. Friday at Rockford Christian High School, and it's going to feature the Forreston Cardinals taking on the Rockford Christian Royal Lions. Yeah,
Forreston comes in with a 1-1 record after beating Amboy 38-6, and Rockford Christian comes in at 0-2 after losing to Stockton 44-20. This is the first time these two teams are meeting. If you take a look at both their games last week, Forreston won 38-6, but really that was a close game throughout the first half. Amboy put up a pretty good fight there. And Rockford Christian, same with Stockton. They had a very good first half, but then didn't complete it in the second half.
The Cards were able to get everybody on the field last week. How do they keep Norquist confined?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, you take a look at Caden Norquist, and he has quickly risen to one of the top passers in the conference already through the first 2 games. He's thrown for 492 yards. He has the best completion percentage at 76.9%. But despite that, their offense through the air has only produced 4 touchdowns. And their offense is going to go as their pass game goes. What Forreston needs to do is they got to be able to get pressure on him to make him make quicker decisions so he doesn't have as much time to make a decision. The problem with that is that Rockford Christian likes to hit you on the quick slants and the quick out passes. They have no problem taking that 5-yard dump pass every single play and just dink and dunk you down the field, and it's effective for them.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to get pressure on them, control that line of scrimmage, and keep Caden in the pocket as much as you can.
Royal Lions, they play really good, strong first halves, but they kind of deteriorate in the second. How do they string it all together?
Well, it goes back to what we were just talking about, trying to look at what the Cards need to do defensively. Offensively, Rockford Christian, like we said, they can hit that pass. They have some big play capabilities. Obviously, Isaiah Johnson is one of their receivers that we talked about preseason for Rockford Christian. He leads the conference currently in receiving yards at 268 yards, despite only playing 2 games. And then Gage Weeby is their second leading receiver, and he happens to be sitting in 6th in the conference with 160 yards. So they're getting big contributions out of these guys. What Rockford Christian needs to be able to do to help make this pass game more effective is to develop a run game. Unfortunately, right now, they have to get that offensive line to win the battles up front. If they can win the battles up front and they can provide a run game and get Noah Ross going in that run game, they might have a better opportunity because, as they say, if you live on the pass, you're going to die on the pass. And, Coach O'Boyle always said 3 things happen when you pass the ball and 2 of them are bad. And he's not wrong. So, and obviously Rockford Christian's sitting at 0-2. So, if they can mix more of the run game with their pass game, maybe they can start to become more effective. But they've impressed a lot of people so far through the first 2 games that they played.
How are you thinking?
Well, you know me. I like the teams that can run the ball because they tend to be more physical teams. They win more times than not, and that's the Forreston Cardinals.
I let you and your truth bombs or whatever your theories. I am continually intrigued by what the Royal Lions bring, since I'm not really familiar with them, like many of us aren't. But I think I'm going to agree and take the Cardinals as well. Our last South matchup of the night takes us to Amboy High School, 7 p.m. on Friday, and the Amboy Clippers are going to be taking on the West Carroll Thunder.
Yeah, both teams come in at 0-2. Last week, West Carroll lost to EPC 44-0, and Amboy lost 38-6 to Forreston. Last year, this was a game that West Carroll won 36-7 in Week 4, and here we are, another Week 4 matchup. That was in Week 4 a season ago.
Huh. That's pretty amazing.
I know.
Anyway, the Thunder have not had much success on offense. Will they be able to isolate the Clipper line and make some room for Davis and company?
They need to. Obviously, one of the things that they have going on is, Devin Davis, their running back, he's only got like 82 yards through the first 2 games. So they're struggling getting him going offensively. Obviously, they've been moving Keldon McCombie around. They've put him at tight end. They've put him on the offensive line. They've put him in the backfield. They've put him at quarterback. They're just kind of filling the holes where they can with what they have available, and it's not working out to what they have personnel-wise, and I think that's really where it's coming to affect the Thunder so far, is in their depth and numbers.
You were down in Amboy last Friday, so you were able to take in that matchup, and you noticed that they moved the ball really effectively in the first. How do they build on that and issue the Thunder some payback for last year?
The Clippers did impress me last week. Obviously Coach Payne has stuck to what Coach Jones has done. He's still running the wishbone offense. They're trying to get some pass plays out of that offense going. They have not had much luck so far, but the run game behind Sean Fitzpatrick has been pretty good. And if you take a look, Fitzpatrick is 7th right now in the conference in rushing yards, despite the fact that they've only played 2 games as well. So considering that, that's pretty good for them. What they need to do is get Joe Quest moving a little bit more as well. If they can get that 1-2 combo punch going, that will help them out as far as moving the ball. They need to get a little bit better up front in their line play. They had some instances last week where they had the ability to sustain some drives, but they couldn't finish the drives. And when you can't finish drives against the better teams, that ends up hurting you. And that's what happened to Amboy. You take a look at each of the past 2 weeks. They played with EPC in the first half. Last week they were playing with Forreston in the first half. But in the second half, both those 2 teams took over and took off with the game. I think Amboy has a great chance of reversing the score from last year. They just got to stay fundamentally sound in their game plan.
I'm also going to take the Clippers this week, but I think it'll be an interesting matchup regardless.
I think so too. I mean, you take a look at these 2 programs, it should be a fun atmosphere for both of them in what is starting off to not be such a great season for both of them, but it gives each of them an opportunity to get that first win in the win column.
Our game of the week takes us down to Lanark, 7 p.m. Friday night for the Milledgeville Missiles and the EPC Wildcats.
Yeah, interesting matchup here, Kara, as both teams come in with matching 2-1 records. Last week, Milledgeville lost to Aquin 40-14, but as we stated previously on the show, that was a much closer game than the final score indicated. And EPC dominated West Carroll in a 44-0 game. Last year, EPC won this matchup 20-12 in Week 4, which actually was a surprising contest considering the fact that EPC was in a fight to get into the playoffs, and Milledgeville went 1-8. Obviously, this year, both teams are starting to somewhat rebound. Milledgeville's really impressed a lot of people around the area. Obviously, they've landed at the 5th spot in our NUIC Power 5 currently. And, EPC is one of those teams that's also looking to jump into that Power 5, obviously have a lot of history behind them as well. And here we are with this big game in week number 4.
Oh, you touched on it. Milledgeville's playing better than, the score would indicate. So how do they take that, and how can they be much more physical to take on a bigger EPC team?
That's a good question. That's one of the things that's really impressed me a lot with Milledgeville so far is how fast they fly to the ball. Granted, pretty much every game this year they've been undersized, but they're not afraid to come up and hit you. And, two of the guys that really stood out to me on the defensive side of the ball has been Damon Miller at his middle linebacker position. I feel that he has done an exceptional job at being able to plug the gaps up the middle. And Ryan Kendall has been all over the field outside the defense back. I know we mentioned it last week as well, but again, against Aquin, those two really made some big plays. And then you add in the play of Daniel Lonis over the past 2 weeks as well. Lonis has really stepped up into big roles, been able to do different things. Obviously, he had the halfback touchdown pass last week. And then later in the game, he caught the receiving touchdown. So, and defensively, he's done some good things. He had a good strip sack fumble recovery on William Gustafson last week as well.
EPC's put together some really good games since their Week 1 loss to Galena. They obviously are facing stiff competition again this week. Can they handle the defensive pressure that Milledgeville will bring?
That's one of the good things about this matchup is Milledgeville does bring a lot of pressure. EPC does have the size advantage. Obviously, the strength program at Eastland's really become very formidable. But like you said, can they handle that pressure? One of the things that we've seen out of EPC so far is they appear to be out of shape, like they're not ready or interested per se in every aspect of the game. You see the lack of focus at different times. If they can maintain that and actually take what they have and move forward and control that line of scrimmage, they're going to have some good advantages. And obviously, you got to be able to get your running back in Logan Krell moving forward. Obviously, Kellen Hensley's been doing a good job controlling the offense, but let's be honest, this is game number 4 for him. There's still some things that can happen. If Miller and company can make some things happen defensively and put some pressure on EPC early, that can definitely create a change in the momentum of the game in favor of Milledgeville. EPC needs to get that front line playing in order to control that.
For me, I think this is another really interesting matchup as to, who can get that third win. I know initially I was leaning towards EPC, but I think I'm going to have to go with the Missiles. How about you?
I agree with you. I like Milledgeville in this game. Well, that gives you a look at what we're looking at going into Week 4. Like we said in the introduction, quite a bit of great games here. I think all 7 games are going to have interesting matchups, intriguing play styles that can counteract each other. It should be a very fun week. Obviously, we only have 2 Saturday games, so we're kind of getting a taste of normal here with primarily Friday night games, which is going to be really cool.
Yeah. Sprinkle in some rivalries as well.
Rivalry week.
Rivalry week.
There, I said it for you. Are you happy?
Yep.
But, here we are, week 4. Again, no playoffs this year, but, there's still a lot of fun to be had. A lot of great games to be had. Obviously, conference titles still on the line, which makes it enjoyable. Just being able to see the kids on the field, and like we said in the introduction, we got quite a few guys that are rising up the career record list, which is really cool to see because obviously, one, it gives us something to talk about. 2, everybody's able to see what they can produce.
Well, and they're still being able to perform even if there is not a state championship on the line.
Right. So, obviously, as always, we're going to get you the radio information. If we get the link information, obviously most of these games are being played on NFHS, but if there's other links that schools are providing through YouTube, we'll get those out there. But if you can get to the games, please do. If not, tune into the games because you're missing out on some great football if you're not. As always, root for the NUIC.